The verb tense that is usually associated with the present simple is the progressive present. Progressive present, which is basically be plus the gerund. This is called a gerund. This is the ing form that you use. Same example as before. The way you would form it is I am working. You are working. So what is necessary is for you to conjugate this verb with your subject in this column, and you add your verb with ing by the end, and it works for all pronouns or all subjects. If you want to form a question, you would say, are you working? So try to always start from the original sentence. You are working. In order to form a question, you need to move the be, considered as an auxiliary, in front of the subject. Are you working? Is he working? There's a simple inversion between the auxiliary and the subject. That's how you would form this. As a negative sentence, you are, so the base is the same as this original sentence, but you would add not working. You are not working. Sometimes this is contracted when people speak, and they would say you aren't. Be careful, the pronunciation is a bit funny. You aren't working. You are not working. So the composition, the construction of this verb is not very difficult. What is interesting is when to use it, and this is what we will have a look at. So what are the goals or the function of this verb tense? The progressive present is used when you describe, so description of an ongoing action, something that is happening the moment you are speaking. For example, the dog is eating a bone. Right now, the moment I'm talking, the dog is eating a bone, right? It doesn't eat a bone all the time, but the moment I'm talking, he's eating a bone, right? Second reason for using the progressive present is when an action has been prepared in the future. For example, so prepared or anticipated action in the future. For example, as I said, you would say, what are you doing tonight? What are you doing tonight? Have you planned anything? Or you could say, I am visiting my nan. My nan is a term we use for grandmother in English. So I am visiting my nan next week, which is something you have anticipated, you have made preparations for this. So these are the two main reasons or goals of this particular verb tense. I use the word goals, it's not the best one, but these are the two functions for using this verb. Now, and this is when it becomes interesting. Try to open a new page. There you go. When do you decide to use present simple or progressive present? We have already exposed a certain number of reasons for which you would choose one or the other, but there are some moments when we prefer a verb tense to another, even though it seems that we could use both. Most of the time we would use the present simple when we perceive something involuntarily, when we see something, hear something, when there's a perception that is not something we are particularly looking for, it happens to us. Suddenly you see something. So I'm thinking about, so it's about perception. I'm thinking about verbs such as hear, see, or smell. Because most of the time, if you suddenly feel or unexpectedly perceive something, it's in the moment. You wouldn't need to add the progressive present to express the fact that it's ongoing the moment you're talking. You would simply say, I smell smoke. Right? And you wouldn't say, I am smelling right now smoke. If you say, I smell smoke, we understand that it's the moment you're talking. So we would use this more than the be plus ing. Now there's another reason for using the present simple, or at least there's another circumstance in which we use the present simple, is when you describe a mental state or a reaction. So maybe once again, if I give you examples, when you say I agree. When you say I agree, you don't need to say I agree right now the moment I'm talking. We would simply say I agree, or we say I believe, or I dislike. So I like. Usually those verbs you would leave in the present simple, because the moment you expose them, you express your mental state, and we don't need to understand this is right now, as you are saying them the moment you're talking. So we don't need to add it more. So we say, I like mushrooms, for example, right? So you like it, it's or it's a state, right? So you don't need, and it's also something, if you like something, you like it all the time. So I suppose it would be a habit as well. Another reason for using the present simple is anything that express belonging. Belonging, for example, the word belong, but I have, or the verb include. You describe something that belongs to, that is part of something else. So for example, the house belongs to my dad. I have 3 dogs. This set of documents includes 2 articles. You would use the present simple. You're describing a situation. Once again, you don't need to add the progressive present. The fourth reason for using it is when you talk about appearances. It looks weird, or this, messed up with this, so I will have to erase it. There you go, rubbing it out. For example, this resembles whatever, or it looks like. So anything that is in relation to appearances. An appearance is something that is happening the moment you see it. You don't need to add the progressive present, right? It's a state, it's almost a fact, once again. The last function of the present simple is what we describe as non-action verbs. Difficult to define what a non-action verb is, but I'm thinking about verbs such as depend, or exist, or lack, or mean. When you use those verbs, they are just descriptive verbs on relations between things, but not necessarily action. So you would use the present and say it depends on the situation, or dinosaur exists. Well, actually they existed, but you would have to use another example. You would say birds exist, right? So it's almost like a fact. So because they're non-action verbs, well, then you would use the present simple. Now, last explanation for you is the reasons for using the progressive present. And this time, there are quite many reasons why you would use it. So the first one is the nature of the verb. For example, if you said, as I said, if you describe an action verb, usually, then you would use the progressive present. So You would use, for example, I am teaching, I am cooking, I am eating. So these are actions. So this is the main reason for using the progressive present, is that those verbs can be done the moment you're talking, just the moment you're talking. Obviously, if you want to say every morning I cook eggs, it becomes a habit, and then you would use the present simple. The second reason for using the progressive present is when you talk about verbs of position, there you go, you would say, for example, I am sitting, or I am standing next to the window. Obviously, it describes where you stand the moment talking or sitting. That's not something you do all the time. It's not a habit. But we would rather say this than I sit. What are you? I sit in the fourth row, for example. You would say, I am sitting. So verbs of position are particularly prone to the progressive present. Now, there are what I call exceptions, really, to the or at least unexpected reasons for using the progressive present. For example, if you say, he is being stupid. He is being stupid. You want to describe the behavior or the comportment of somebody the moment you are talking this time. It doesn't mean the person is stupid all the time. You would say he's stupid. If you say he is stupid, it means that the person is a bit simple-minded, for example. But if you say he's being stupid at the moment, you're irritated by his attitude. Oops, I'm going to have to take that down. At the moment you're talking. You could say at someone, you are being stupid right now, stop doing this. It doesn't mean that you think the person is stupid all the time, but in that particular moment you do. There's another one which is used by McDonald's. I'm loving it. Say, I am loving I'm loving it here more and more. More and more. It expresses a change. Love is a verb, as I explained earlier, which is I wouldn't describe it as a non-action verb, but it's a mental state. So most of the time, so verbs such as like or love, you would use in the present simple. You would say, I love this, I love that, I like this, or dislike this. When you say, I am loving, it means you indicate that there is a change. I am loving what I'm seeing right now. It's different from usual. If you say, I like horses, I love horses, you love horses all the time. But if you, for example, you've never seen a horse before and you are starting horse riding, you'd say, I'm loving it, right? Which means that before you didn't know what it was, now you do, and you are in the process of developing feelings towards this new activity. So I am loving it here more and more. It means there's a change going on. We said that when we were talking about habits, we would have to use the present simple, but it happens that you might say, whenever I go to London, it's raining. What you're describing here is that when you get to London, it's already raining. When you get, it's a habit. So if it's a habit, you could say it rains, and whenever I go to London, it rains. That would be a fact. That would be a habit. But when you add the be plus ing, it means that the rain has started already when you get to London, right? Because maybe if you said whenever I go to London, it rains, it means the moment I step in London, it starts raining. But if I say whenever I go to London, it's raining, it means it was raining before, and the moment I get there, it's still raining. So that's how we would use this be plus ing. There's something I've mentioned before, which is the expression of irritation with something. You would say, he is always annoying me. Technically, it would be impossible to use this progressive present with always, because always expresses a habit, something that happens all the time, and this defines the features of the present simple. But because there is an exclamation mark, and because you express irritation at the situation, it makes you angry, then you would say, you are always talking me down, he's always annoying me. If you were trying to answer a multiple choice question, most of the time you would get this exclamation mark that indicates someone is emotionally unhappy about a situation. Right. It might express surprise as well. For example, I am always meeting him on the train. It's once again impossible to use this be plus ing form with always, but in this particular case, well, as you can see, there's another exclamation mark, but you would use the progressive present this time because you want to express the surprise. That's really strange, right? Once again, it's a form of emotion. We talked about irritation, this time it's surprise. And the last example I'd like to mention is when you want to express a wish, but in a very formal manner. When you want to be distant from people, you don't want to sound like you're talking to somebody in the pub. So if you want to express a wish, you would say, I'm hoping you can help me out. I'm hoping you can help me. Hope is a verb that expresses mental state. So most of the time we say, I hope this, he hopes that. But in here, you are trying to be a bit more polite in a way. I'm hoping you can help me, or I'm looking forward to you. This expresses a wish, but you are trying to be a bit remote or polite or distance from the person. Right. And that's pretty much it, all I have to say about the progressive present. I hope everything helped. Next lesson will be about the past, which is not so different when it comes to using the gerund form or the simple